Five Nights at Freddy's. Maybe you've heard of it before? It was a series of horror games made by a guy who wanted to get back at the people who called his previous works creepy. So what better way to get back at them than to become extremely successful with a grand total of 5 fun mainline entries. And sister location. So many people clung to this series since its humble beginnings. I was not one of those people, however. Not because I didn't like it, but simply for the reason that I didn't even know of its existence. That's just what happens when you live in an extremely sheltered environment with no access to current events. I was just some kid with a DS when the first one released, and I probably wouldn't have liked it back then anyway because I was afraid of gremlins for some reason, so I could only imagine how little me would view Fnaf. I was also homeschooled with nobody else to spread word to me, so I was just completely unaware of anything that others found popular. I had heard about Minecraft a couple times, but that is the closest I have ever gotten to back then to knowing something popular. Fast forward several years into the future, where I have a cruddy little computer that can't run for more than 15 minutes without overheating, a YouTube channel with about 8 subscribers that I was proud of, and a newfound love for horror games from watching game theory videos. As a matter of fact, game theory is what inspired me to start making my own videos in the first place, which is why if you look back at some of my older videos, they are all mostly theories. I don't really watch game theory that much anymore, but this channel probably wouldn't even exist if I had never watched them. Anyway, I loved Bendy and the Ink Machine and was watching MatPat talk about Fnaf because it looked like something that I would be interested in. He was talking about how Fnaf 6 was a perfect conclusion to the series, so naturally I went to download and play this as my very first Fnaf game.
You what?
Let me explain. I was a broke kid who couldn't just buy any game I see, still kinda am, and Fnaf 6 just so happened to be completely free, so this was the best I could do to get into the series. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't be as into Fnaf as I am today if it wasn't free.
If you'd been listening, you might have noticed nobody asked.
Pizzeria Simulator may have been a love letter to Fnaf fans, but it was my introduction to the series, and man, what an introduction it was. To this day, Fnaf 6 remains as my favorite in the whole series, including Help Wanted, as cool as that game is to play with a headset. So today, I wanted to make a video reviewing and describing everything about this game that I hold dear to my heart, starting with...
You're not who I expected to see.
Pizzeria Simulator has 4 different gameplay modes, each of which I will be covering in this section. You have Salvage Mode, Simulator Mode, Minigame Mode, and the main gameplay. Salvage Mode happens at the end of every one of your main gameplay shifts. At least it's supposed to, but for some reason when I go to start a new game, it doesn't reset the amount of animatronics that you have salvaged, so I just had to skip this mode altogether other than Molten Freddy. Oh well. What is supposed to happen is that you are put in a room with one animatronic sitting in front of you, while a tape recorder tells you to check a box if you see anything suspicious happen. Yes, no, and unsure. None of these answers really matter though, because you can check all of the boxes at once if you felt like it and nothing different would happen. The only reason you are required to check them at all is because your idiot brain thinks that it would be a good idea to cover your entire field of vision with a piece of paper while an extremely dangerous soul-possessed robot sits right in front of you. Not only that, but just before you looked at the paper, the tape recorder just played a bunch of noises trying to provoke the thing into making the first move towards gutting your mortal body. Okay, so what happens if said animatronic is provoked? Well, they move slightly enough for you to notice, and you get to take out your taser and zap them. Now normally, you would just never stop frying the current threat, but there's a catch. You can only use your taser a total of 3 times before you damage the animatronic. And you wouldn't want to do that because you, my good friend, are a greedy little butthole who would rather risk your own life for $400 to spend on an arcade machine than to throw it back into the alley where you suspiciously found it. Speaking of arcade machines, the next gameplay mode I will discuss is the Simulator mode that the game was named after. You see, you just bought an entire pizzeria because you thought it would be a good idea to start up your own business and work with Freddy Fazbear & Co. so you could get to buy stuff and customize your very own restaurant. There's not much else I can say about this mode, it's basically just your entrance to the minigames. But I'm sure some people enjoy this kind of simulator content, and so do I to an extent. It's a pretty charming part of the game, but not much more. The minigames themselves are the main thing you'll be playing here, and man are they an upgrade from the previous minigames from the series. Previous entries' minigames were always so slow and almost unplayable. The only reason you would ever want to play them is to learn more about the lore hidden behind the scenes. But here they feel like something you would actually find in an arcade. Playing these minigames are your main way of getting points, which will give you the money required to purchase more things to improve your restaurant. So naturally, you would probably want to grind out these as much as possible to get rich quick. Here's the catch. Even though you literally own these machines, you only get a total of 10 tokens before you can't play them anymore. The only way to get more tokens is to survive through one of the main levels. You also need to get through 3 of these minigames to completion to get the true ending. I'll save these for the story part of the video, so just put them in the back of your mind for now. The main gameplay loop that you'll be focused on sets you in an area with a large vent either side of you, and a computer in front of you for you to complete certain tasks. All you have to do to complete these tasks is press a button and wait for it to finish itself. But that doesn't mean that all of these tasks are the same. Ordering supplies are fairly short tasks, not taking too long to complete, but with the downside being that there are more of this task to do than any other. Maintenance is like the opposite of this, with only 3 tasks to complete, but they take a little longer than ordering supplies does. Advertising is going to be the hardest list of tasks for you to do, however, because although they don't take too long, it makes so much more noise than the rest of them while you are doing it. So you may be asking me right now, why would it matter if you make a lot of noise? Well, you know the vents to your left and right that I mentioned earlier? Yeah, as a surprise to no one, animatronics will be coming through those to kill you. But you will never be able to see if there is one in the vents or not, because you were too stupid to use the flashlight on your phone, and instead used the screen light to show what's ahead of you. That's not actually what happens, but that's just how it looks to me. It is your job to listen carefully and determine which side something is coming from, and direct your light to the direction you heard rustling come from. Pointing your light in that direction will cause the animatronics to cease fire for some reason, giving you more time to live. But animatronics aren't the only things out to get you in this situation, because it can get pretty hot in the vents, so you have to maintain a low temperature to avoid passing out from heat exhaustion. To lower the temperature, you have to turn on the air conditioner, which will lower it but at the cost of creating more noise. This may all sound like a bit too much to deal with, but you do have some neat tools at your disposal. First of all, you can use money gained from the minigames to buy upgrades for the tasks, making them not take as long as they used to. I would highly recommend getting these as soon as possible. It will really help you towards the end, especially since clearing these levels requires you to do them, whereas previous games just had a timer of how long you need to survive. This one just has the tasks, meaning that you could spend 20 minutes on an attempt, only to die when you're just about to log off. The next tool you have is a motion detector, which is your only visual way of telling you where the animatronics are on the map. You can't see exactly where everyone is while using it, and you can only see where someone is if they move, so you should stick to using your ears for tracking them most of the time. Next to the motion detector is an audio lure, which will get the animatronics to move to a different area of the map. This won't always work, however, so you might want to use it sparingly. The first time I played this, I would pretty much constantly use this, thinking that it was the best way of getting them away from you. Don't do that. It's a bad idea, and I honestly don't even know how I beat the game using this mindset. What you should be using constantly, however, is the silent ventilation. The first time I played, I had no idea what it even did, so I never used it then. But now that I know how it works, I was pretty much using it the whole entire time. Silent ventilation doesn't lower your temperature like the AC does, but it does make the temperature rise a lot slower than normal. And it is the only one of your tools that can be used while the PC is off. So in the moments where you have to turn everything off because there are animatronics coming from both sides of you, you can still use it. And the best part is, while your computer is off, the temperature will not rise above a certain limit, giving you plenty of time to wait everything out without making any noise. All of these tools are useful to some capacity, but you can only use one at a time, and you can't do tasks while using the map, so keep that in mind while playing. All of these different things make this the best Fnaf gameplay loop to go through in my opinion, with a definitive goal in mind instead of just waiting it out until you win. One of my most hated parts of playing through Fnaf games is that the first level is always so tedious to get through, especially the fourth one, because there's absolutely nothing to do until you reach 3 AM.
And outside, where that squirrel is, there was nothing!
And if you die partway through, too bad! You have to start all the way from the nothing beginning again. But in this game, there may not be that much of a threat, but you can get through it fairly quickly by just focusing on your tasks, while at the same time giving newcomers the chance to get used to the environment.
I always come back.
Audio is one of the most important aspects to this game. Most Fnaf games have some sort of audio cues to go off of, such as the toy animatronics crawling away in the vents of the second game, or the sound of Foxy sprinting at you in the first one, and you need to listen in the darkness of Fnaf 4, but Pizzeria Simulator is the most immersive out of all of them in my opinion. Not only do you have to listen for the audio cues, but you also have to pay attention from which direction the sounds come from. You kind of have to wear earphones to play effectively because of the way it works. You can hear sounds from both ears, but one side is going to be louder than the other, so you point your flashlight in the direction where you heard the noise coming from. My main problem with this is that you have to turn up the volume by quite a bit to be able to have the best chance at hearing everything, but the jump scares are very loud. Even at a lower volume, they seem to scream in my ears. What makes this worse is the fact that I have sensitive hearing, meaning that I sometimes get physical pain just from losing a stupid game. Fortunately, I'm pretty good at playing at a lower volume, but some people would not be able to play this at all because of this, especially people who just can't hear at all. Now, I'm not saying that a game needs to be accessible to every living person on the planet, but there is one simple way that this could be fixed, and you're never gonna believe where this idea comes from. Baldi's Basics Plus. You see, in that game, you have a captions option. This will let you see where everything is that you would normally have to listen for, with the captions getting larger every time someone making a noise gets closer to you. Something similar to this would be nice for pretty much every Fnaf game, but I'm surprised that nobody has ever made a mod like this before. If anyone decides to make a captions mod for all of the Fnaf games, that would make them so much more accessible for people to play. It would make them a whole lot easier, but at least more people would be able to experience them even with their disabilities. While we're on the topic of audio, I also wanted to mention the music and background noises in this game. As you've probably noticed by now, I've been using the music from this game as background noise for the video, and it is some of the best music from any Fnaf game. The music for the mini-games is so lively and energetic, which fits perfectly for what you're doing. You also have some more atmospheric tracks used for the more serious parts, which also fit perfectly for what you're doing. And overall, the music is amazing. I even listened to some of it outside of the game, which shows just how much I enjoyed it.
One big happy family!
Please note that I'm not telling you the whole story that this game is about, but I'm just going over as much as I can understand of it. Fnaf games are known for their convoluted lore, so please don't crucify me in the comments just because I got one little detail wrong. The story begins with a training video explaining how you, yes you, bought a part of Fazbear Entertainment and get to run your own restaurant. We don't really know why you would want to do this at this point, other than the announcer saying that everyone's doing it. But you are later shown your alternative motives. Earlier I mentioned 3 minigames that would contribute to the main story, so let's discuss them. The first one that you are likely to get is called Fruity Maze, and it's basically a Pac-Man knockoff. Probably closer to a Pac-Mania bootleg since you can't see the entirety of the stage at any given time. Your main goal is to collect all of the fruits before the time runs out, using the power-ups you find along the way. You have a lightning bolt that lets you go faster, a magnet that attracts the fruit to you, and a thing that lets you go through walls. I call it a thing because I have no idea what it is. A cape? A pair of overalls? A purple frog? I have no idea. After collecting a few fruits, a screen will flash to tell you that your time has been extended. But that's not the only thing it lets you know. because when the screen flashes, it also shows that a smiling young girl is playing the game, and that she is the same character that you are controlling in the maze. After you beat the level, you can choose to play it again if you want to, but immediately you notice that something isn't right. The music has slowed down and become distorted, and half of the fruits have been replaced by a smiling dog with no legs and blood coming from beneath it. The girl in the reflection is also no longer smiling. So you beat that level and decide to play this minigame one last time. Now the smiling dog is still there, but they've been completely mutilated to the point of no return. With the most disturbing thing about it being that you can still see it breathing, suffering through its final moments while still maintaining its happy composure for you. The girl in the maze now tracks blood wherever she goes, and the girl in the reflection has burst into tears. You can also notice a man in a yellow rabbit suit standing next to her. You can no longer grab the lightning power-ups, making it impossible to complete the level in the time limit. The timer inevitably runs out, but 10 seconds before it does, the distorted music switches to a blaring car horn. After you run out of time, you get text from the rabbit man telling the young girl, quote, "He's not really dead. He is over here. Follow me." Presumably luring the girl to her own demise, similar to the dog's. After this, you are booted back to the restaurant. You can no longer play the Fruity Maze minigame because it won't let you anymore. So you're just left thinking about what you just saw. Now, from what I understand, the guy in the rabbit suit was William Afton, obviously, and after looking it up, I found out that the girl's name is Susie, but I don't really know that much about her. The next minigame is called Midnight Motorist, with the main goal being to reach the end with as few crashes as possible flying by at 200 miles per hour. It's a pretty fun minigame, and the easiest way to get fast points in the early game. But as you may have guessed, this too holds a disturbing secret. In the final lap, you can notice a gap at the bottom of the screen, and if you choose to go into the gap, you are sent into a different area where you slowly drive around in your purple car to find your way home. Now I know what you're thinking. Purple car? That must mean it's William Afton. Well, you would think so, but when you step out of the car, your character isn't purple. He's orange. So I have no idea who this is supposed to be, and as far as I'm aware, nobody else seems to know who this guy is either. There are several theories floating around, but pretty much all of them have some holes in them, and nobody can say with 100% certainty what happened here. Anyways, this orange guy is apparently banned from the local bar and makes his way home. After he gets home, he discovers that his kid broke through the window to escape their room and goes off to find him. And that's pretty much all that happens in this one. I don't understand it, and neither does the rest of the fanbase, so I'll just keep going forward. The last important minigame that you need is also the most expensive, costing $12,500 to purchase. So it must be the best minigame out of all of them, right? In this minigame you do nothing.
Right where your head is, there was nothing there.
I'm not even joking. If you do anything, you have lost. It's called Security Puppet, and your goal is to make sure that the child with the green bracelet doesn't escape the room. This child never shows up, meaning that you just sit there for 30 seconds waiting for something to happen. At least with the Fruity Maze minigame, you only had to play through it 3 times, but with this one you have to go through it 4 times. Why? Oh, and get this, when the green bracelet kid finally does show up on the 4th round, she's already outside in the rain. You had one job! So you go outside to bring her back in, but it's raining outside, so your animatronic body starts breaking down on the way. And when you finally get to her, uh-oh, she's dead! Now I wonder who could have possibly done that.
I wonder who it could ever be. It is Isaac!
Huh, a lot of Invader Zim memes in this episode, aren't there? The puppet decides to merge with the girl for some reason, and the final lore-based minigame ends. Now I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'm going to try my best to explain. After you finish your tasks on Saturday, you are confronted by Scrap Baby, who lets you know that you brought all of these souls in one place, but is interrupted by the same guy who voiced the tapes for the salvage mode. He tells you that he is nearby as the whole pizzeria starts to heat up significantly. He is trying to release the trapped souls contained within the animatronic shells so they can be set free by burning down the restaurant. He mentions that I am exactly where I want to be, so I don't need to escape. I don't know who this guy is to tell me that I want to be burned alive in this dilapidated building, but okay then. He is also burning down what remains of Springtrap to send his spirit to the darkest pit of hell, It's also revealed that the girl who died in the security puppet minigame was this man's daughter, and that her spirit is being released from the puppet who took it. You then get another training video letting you know that Fazbear Entertainment has completely shut down, while thanking you for taking this journey with them. The credits roll, and at the end, you get to see all of the children's gravestones, symbolizing that their souls are all at peace. And technically it's not the same game, but in Ultimate Custom Night, you get to see what William's hell is, with him having to die over and over and over again by the same characters that he himself helped create. This perfectly ends the series, tying up all loose ends that may have been left, while creating a few new things for people to theorize about, but still letting Afton die, never to harm anyone again. But you forgot one thing. He always comes back. Because Security Breach decided it would be a good idea to bring William back, meaning that I just burned alive for nothing. Oh, and also, we're gonna make this blob character that is an amalgamation of all of the souls that you supposedly freed, meaning this entire ending was completely pointless. Or you can just be like me and pretend that the Afton ending doesn't exist because it wasn't made by the original creator, so therefore it isn't canon to what the original intentions were and that this was taking place in an alternate dimension. Yeah, I like that idea more.
That was easier than I thought it would be.
In all seriousness though, as long as you completely ignore Security Breach, this is the perfect ending to the franchise as a whole, and this game was my first to ever play in the series. Gameplay-wise, it is probably the best start to have, and it remains as my favorite to play to this day. The story is a bit rough to start out on though, considering that this was literally the ultimate finale to it all. Not to mention the several other endings you can get, some with even more lore significance to them. But overall, this was a blast to look back into, and I enjoyed making this video, even though it did turn out to be a lot longer than I expected it to be. And with all that being said, I am Kayumba, the Kirby Goomba, and I hope you will see me next time. Goodbye.